And good evening and welcome to this week's edition of the Pete Mezzetti Show. It's actually sports night tonight. And with me to discuss what's going on in the sports world, we're also going to talk about country music. We're going to talk about sports country radio. Speaking of sports country radio, that's a good segue if I ask myself, and I do. Speaking of sports country radio, my guest tonight is the host of the Wake Up Call on Sports Country Radio, Mr. Gene Gumbs.
Hi, Pete. How are you? Good to see you.
Hello, Mr. Gumbs. How are you, my friend?
Doing good. Things are good.
Good to see you.
Yeah, it's good to see you.
It's been a while.
Yeah, well, you know,
right.
People can only take so much of me, including my wife. She was actually glad I was coming here because I was out of the house for a while.
For a couple hours. There you go. Yeah. How you been? How things going? Station?
Things are going really well. I mean, we've been on for a year and a half now, and we're averaging about 4,000 or 5,000 people a month. My morning show is doing well. It's a bit of a pain getting up at 6 o'clock in the morning to do a show starting at 8, but you know, it's not bad. And I've got people that follow the show on a daily basis. I get emails now from people, so people are paying attention, which is good. It makes it worthwhile, and so it's fun. It's a lot of fun. It's more fun. It's more work than I ever thought it was going to be. But I'm having a lot of fun with it.
Well, then there you go. Yeah. There you go. Now tell us a little bit about the morning show.
Well, it's mostly sports talk, but I have started doing some other things. Like I talk about current events. I love to talk about the state of Connecticut, not necessarily in a good way.
No.
I've talked about it a lot lately with all the stuff going on, with the talk about tolls, with the talk about people leaving the state of Connecticut. You know, all the different things going on. So I like to try to keep it not just sports. Well, you and I have talked before. One of my favorite people was Don Imus, and it's one of the reasons why I started doing this. Well, Don Imus, you know, was about everything. He was about music. He was about current events. He was about sports. He did a little bit of everything. So that's kind of what I'm no Don Imus, but I'm trying to do a little bit of that. So I bring some current events into it as well. So, but it's mostly about sports, and of course mostly about New England sports to start with. But I try to bring in a little bit for everybody because I do have people listening all the way across the country, all the way out in California. I actually have people listening to me in France. Yeah, there's some people, some Americans that are living in France, and they listen to my show, and for them it's great because I go on at 8 o'clock in the morning our time. I think it's 4 in the afternoon their time. So they're getting out of work, so they're listening to me after they get out of work. So it's kind of cool, and I get emails from them. So I try to bring a little bit for everybody.
Cool. And you guys actually also do, besides your local show, you guys also do some community shows.
Well, I do. Well, we have your show. I have another guy, Sam Dostler, who does the New England Travel Journal, where he goes around to different restaurants, different resorts, hotels around New England, and he does a podcast about that. So we carry that on Sundays. We have your show on Saturdays. We do that on Sundays. And then we have other podcasts during the week of other sports podcasts from people around different parts of the country. You know, like I have one that's just based on the Atlanta Braves, so which is great. They're in the playoffs, so that's very topical. We have somebody in New Orleans that does a show about sports like LSU, the New Orleans Hornets who play down there. So I got a little bit from around the country, a little bit of everything. It's been a lot of fun, and there's people actually coming to me now wanting to get their shows on the air, which is really, really cool.
Yeah, but you also got Dr. Z, Dan Zampano.
Well, I have Dan every week. He does a show called Grind Time.
Yes, he does.
He and Chris Raza and Matty Ice, these guys are hilarious.
I've never met Matty or...
Yeah, well, Chris, and I have Chris on.
Or Chris.
Chris comes on every Tuesday to talk Major League Baseball with me. I have Dan on every Friday to talk about football. But their show, if you haven't listened to it, you need to check it out. Every Tuesday at 4 o'clock. These guys do a great job. They're very funny. They know. I tell you what, they know more about a lot. I'm hosting a show about sports. Dan knows more about football. Probably has forgotten more about football than I know. So it's a lot of fun to listen to it because I think he teaches people a lot. He teaches me stuff every week. So and he's funny. He's funny.
And then you listen to Pete Mezzetti, and it puts you to sleep.
Well, that's why we have you on Saturdays. But no, it's one of the things that that's one of the other parts of one of the reasons that we carry your show is because we're in Connecticut. We want to pay homage to that and the fact that you talk to people from all around the state. I think it's important what you do, and I think it's important that we have a piece of that on our station as well. I mean, it is all around the country, but I think we need to pay attention to the fact that we're in Connecticut.
Oh, absolutely. Let's talk. we're going to talk sports. So you want to start with NFL, college, or high school? Pick one.
Well, I don't want to talk about high school football.
All right. Fine. We're not talking about
Let's talk about the NFL.
Let's talk about the NFL.
New England Patriots.
Sure.
Everybody wants to talk about the Patriots.
Yeah.
Dan Zampano, who we just talked about, is a big Patriots fan.
Absolutely.
Everybody panicking this week. The Patriots are 4-0, and you would think that their season's over.
Right.
They did not have a great offensive performance this past week against the Buffalo Bills.
No, they didn't.
And the first thing everybody's saying is, oh my God, Tom Brady's 42 years old. It's time for him to retire. He looked 42 this week. I think people need to relax a little bit. The Buffalo Bills defense, I think, was better than people expected it to be. The Patriots defense is playing phenomenal, and Brady did enough. He wasn't great, but it wasn't Tom Brady's fault. I think you have to give credit to the Buffalo Bills defense. So, I don't know that they're going to lose a lot of games this year. I really don't.
Really?
I don't know if they're going to win the Super Bowl, but I think they're going to go through the regular season maybe 2 losses. I think they're 14-2, 13-3 at the worst, and I think that they'll get close to the Super Bowl. I don't know if they'll get in. I don't know if they can beat the Kansas City Chiefs. The Chiefs are too good, but they're going to be right there. They're going to be right there. And and as far as for other people in Connecticut, if you're not a Patriots fan, you're probably a New York Giants fan. And the Giants, a great win. They made the transition to quarterback to Daniel Jones.
Yep.
He's not the answer, folks. Everybody's excited because they've won 2 weeks in a row, but they just beat the Washington Redskins. Morgan High School could give the Washington Redskins a game.
All right.
So I'm not too excited about what he's done yet. I think people need to kind of, step it back a little bit on the New York Giants. I don't think they're quite there yet. And the New York Jets, it's just they don't get any better, and they're going to have to make some serious adjustments in Jets land. I just don't think that they are going to be competitive at all this year.
You an NFL fan?
Am I an NFL fan?
Yeah.
Well, I am a baseball fan first.
Okay.
That's my first love.
All right.
And then probably my second love is college basketball. I was a former college basketball coach, so it's something that that I love. And so I like the NFL.
Yeah.
But it's probably third on my list of sports that I pay attention to.
Exactly.
Yep.
I didn't know you coached college basketball.
Yeah, well, I don't tell a lot of people. I was an assistant coach. I wasn't a head coach, but I was an assistant coach in college for 10 years. I coached at the Coast Guard Academy here in New London, and then I was an assistant coach at Western New England College in Springfield, Massachusetts.
Gee, I've heard the name of that college.
Yeah, so I did that for quite a while. So that's really, and then when I went to Division I and I was following Division I basketball teams around the country, I just grew to love it even more. So that's probably, outside of baseball, college basketball is really the thing I pay the most attention to.
And baseball season's pretty much wrapping up.
Well, the regular season ended yesterday, and my first thing my wife said was, thank God.
Yeah, right.
My wife likes, it's 162 games. It's a long year for people that aren't baseball fans. For me, I wish they could play it 12 months a year.
Absolutely.
But for people that my poor wife has to watch baseball all the time, because I have it on, and she's great. She doesn't, she teases me a lot, but she doesn't really care.
No.
But she's just glad it's over. So the playoffs will start tomorrow night.
Okay.
Actually, it will have already started by the time this airs. I know. On Tuesday night, the wild card, the National League wild card, and then Wednesday the American League wild card. And this is the time of the year I root for the Yankees to lose.
Yeah.
Well, the Red Sox didn't make the playoffs this year. I'm a big Red Sox fan. They didn't make the playoffs, so now my job is to root for anybody that's not the New York Yankees. So
who do we have playing?
Well, I think in the National League wild card, it's going to be the Milwaukee Brewers against the Washington Nationals. I think the Nationals come out of that, but I think the Dodgers are the best team in the National League by far. Okay. They won 107 games this year. I think it's going to probably be the Dodgers and the Atlanta Braves in the National League Championship Series. And then I think in the American League, I think it's going to come down to the Yankees and the Houston Astros. And I think the Astros will beat them. I think the Astros the Astros have a much better pitching staff than the Yankees, and I think the offense for the Astros is just as good as what the Yankees have. Everybody wants to talk about that great Yankees offense, but look, Houston's just as good. They've got Connecticut's own George Springer, who's from New Britain, Connecticut.
Yeah, absolutely.
He had an MVP caliber season this year. I think Houston's just as good offensively, and I think they beat the New York Yankees.
Wow.
And go to the World Series. And I don't know who will win the World Series, but I think a Houston Dodger World Series is going to be a lot of fun because the Dodger pitching staff is just as good as Houston's. So I think that's going to be fun. I think that's one that could go 7 games. And being an American League guy, I guess I would have to lean towards Houston just because I'd like to see George Springer be able to win one. So that'd be kind of cool.
Exactly. And I have to let you know, listening to the show, I enjoy when you have your friend on from the Boston Globe.
Pete Abraham.
I was going to say whose name is escaping.
Yeah, Peter's he's the beat writer for the Boston Globe, and Pete actually got his start in Connecticut for the Norwich Bulletin. Back many years ago, he was a sports writer at the Norwich Bulletin. And he used to cover the Norwich Navigators.
Oh, absolutely.
Which is now, I guess, the Connecticut Tigers now. Well, because the Navigators left, they went to Richmond, became the Flying Squirrels, and now they've got the Connecticut Tigers. But anyway, Pete was here when the Navigators were here, and he and I got to be friends. He and Mike DeMoro and I used to be in there all the time. And then Peter got a job to cover the Yankees in White Plains.
Okay.
And while he was there, he got the offer to go to Boston, and he took it. And so I've known Peter probably for 25 years, and he's gracious enough to come on my show because at the end of the day, he's working for the Boston Globe. He's going on national media all the time.
Yeah.
And for him to take the time to come on my show, I really appreciate it. And I get Don Mamore, who's a sports writer for the Hartford Courant, comes on with me from time to time. And so I've got a lot of old media friends from my days working in college athletics, and they've been very kind to me at Sports Country to come on my show.
Now, who's Mike DeMoro?
Mike DeMoro is he's assistant sports editor and the sports columnist for the New London Day.
Okay.
And he has been at the Day forever. And he is one of the funniest guys I have ever met in my life, and he's a great writer. And again, he and we go way back. And he anytime I call him, he's right there to go on with me. So I'm very grateful to all my friends that have kind of helped me get this station off the ground.
Do you want to stick around for another segment?
Sure.
We'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Kelly. It is my job to teach employees the responsible way to sell both tobacco and electronic cigarettes. As of October 1st, 2019, a customer must be at least 21 years old to purchase a tobacco product or an electronic cigarette. The law also says all employees must card anyone who appears to be under the age of 30 years old. The free updated prevention education program will be available on October 1st, 2019 at cttobaccotraining.com.
Community TV, your neighborhood TV.
Publicly funded and a reliable partner for cable companies nationwide, it provides transparent coverage of local and state government, education, and public programming.
A digital town green that can be watched anywhere, anytime, and on any device.
Watch us on today's high-tech distribution methods.
Community TV in Connecticut.
Local,
unfiltered,
reliable, and yours.
And welcome back to this week's edition of the Pete Mezzetti Show, sitting here with the man, the myth, the legend of Sports Country Radio, Gene Gumbs. Welcome back, sir.
Thanks.
Hey, you called me the man, the myth, the legend, Pete Mezzetti the other day.
That's true, I did.
Yes, you did.
I did.
So I owe you one.
Thanks.
All right, we talked about sports in the first half.
Yep.
Let's talk about country radio. Let's talk about country music.
Well, yeah, it's funny. People say I don't understand how sports and country music go together, and I guess, I don't know if they technically do. It's just two of the things that I love, and that's kind of, and of course the name of the station's a play on both sports, and so.
Absolutely.
But one of the things that's been fascinating this week, and my wife kind of got force-fed a lesson the last couple of weeks. There's been a outstanding documentary on PBS. Ken Burns did it. Ken Burns, who did the old Civil War documentary, and he's done a whole bunch of different ones. He's a phenomenal filmmaker, and it's been on the history of country music. I think it was eight episodes, 2 hours apiece.
Okay.
So I have just been eating that up. So now the poor people on my station, when I do my sports talk show every morning, I have musical breaks. So when I go to the news, I always break for songs, and so 3 times a show. So now, because I've been watching this show about the history of country music, my poor listeners are not just listening to country music, they're listening to some old-time country music. I'm pulling out some stuff from the 50s and 60s, and my wife threatened to shoot me.
Oh no.
Well, my wife actually loves music. She loves country music, but she's not a big fan of the old country music.
No.
And I think that's what we're finding, and a lot of the people that I talk to on my station have actually chimed in. They like the fact that not only do I play some stuff from today, but I play country music all the way back into the 50s and 60s. I play some of the old time stuff too.
Really?
Yeah, stuff that people haven't heard in a long time. So a lot of older listeners, people my age, that listened to it when they were growing up.
Right.
Because I grew up in the 60s listening to the old time country music. So my listeners that are my age chime in all the time, and I get emails telling me how great it is, and they're actually calling to get me to do requests. So that has led me, and I talked to you the last time I was here.
Yeah.
I'm going to start doing a theme show, and it's going to be on Saturday nights after your show.
Okay.
And it's going to be, for instance, the first show I put together is Country Music at War. So what I'm going to do is it's going to be a 2-hour show, and all the songs are going to be about war. So,
Okay.
you know, all the times that, you know, there's been some great country music songs about, you know, soldiers going off to war, or wives back at home waiting for, or what happens when somebody passes away,
Right.
or so that's I'm going to have a 2-hour show. That's going to be the first one, and then I've got I think 8 or 10 different shows lined up.
Oh, wow.
They take a lot of work to put together.
Yeah.
But what's been great is I've had some of my listeners, when I talked to them about it, have emailed me and given me suggestions for themes, given me suggestions for songs. So I've got quite a notebook full of stuff now that I'm putting together. So yeah, I love sports, but yes, I also love music. So it's a way for me to fulfill both my passions.
Cool.
It's great.
Oh,
It's a
man.
lot of fun. So hey, I got to ask you a question.
What?
Well, you come on my show all the time.
I do.
And I've never really had a chance to ask you, what made you want to do what you do? I mean, I know what made me want to do what I do, but what drove you to do this?
Considering when I come on your show on Thursday mornings, like you and I have about 15 seconds.
I don't have time to ask you a lot of questions.
No,
so
you and I
now I'm going to hijack your show. What made you want to do this?
Because I believe in community events, community affairs, and I love doing what I'm doing. It's not only people, because as you know, it's not only Sports Country Radio who carries the audio of my show. It's also another station out of Middletown, Connecticut.
Right. Yeah. John Clark at CNX does the same thing.
Yes.
I think what's important, and I think maybe, I don't know if you feel the same way. I mean, we're not getting paid for this.
No.
You know, so we're not doing this because I'm going to get a paycheck. I'm doing this because it's what I love to do. So I'm assuming that's what kind of drives you a little
absolutely.
bit.
I love what I'm doing. People ask me all the time, why do you do what you do? Because I love what I'm doing. They were like, you ever going to stop? I'm like, when I can't talk anymore.
Are people begging for you to stop? Yeah.
Wow.
I'm just asking.
Are people begging for you to stop in the
No,
morning?
actually, people want to know how much longer I can do this, and my answer has always been, I can do what I do now for as long as I can put a sentence together. So as long as I'm not not getting up in the morning and blowing bubbles in my oatmeal, I figure that I can continue to do what I'm doing. So, but you know, it's just good to hear that. It doesn't always have to be about a paycheck, and I think that's something.
Definitely not.
But I think it's something that the younger generation hasn't figured out yet.
Right.
The younger generation thinks everything has to be monetized. You have to be able to make money off of everything, and I think that's something that has gotten lost.
Right.
With this generation, I know a lot of the people behind the cameras here are the younger generation. So I'm not trying to diss anybody, but I think that a lot of people forget that it doesn't have to be about money. I've had people that have contacted me about being on my station. Mm-hmm. They want their show on my station, but they want to know how much I'm going to pay them for the rights for them to be on my show, on my station. And I was like, how old are you? And I had a kid, one of the kids, well, I'm 23 years old. I graduated from college last year. I said, do you have a big following? And no. Well, then why? What makes you think what you do has value? But they're like, well, this is how I'm going to make my living. And I was like, but you have to start somewhere. You have to build up a following, and sometimes you have to build up a following by doing stuff for nothing.
Right.
You have to learn to. My daughters, they think they're going to graduate college. Well, they've already graduated, but they thought they were going to graduate college and somebody was going to hand them a job that was going to pay them $75,000 a year, and by and large, it doesn't work that way.
No.
So I think that's something that we've lost. I think that the spirit of learning how to pay your dues and learning how to give back. I think a lot of that's gotten lost. So it's good to hear that I'm not necessarily trying to give back. I'm trying to have fun.
Oh yeah.
And I don't care whether I get paid or not. And I know that you have fun doing what you do.
I love what I'm doing.
So
the crazy thing is not only do we have fun doing what we're doing, and most people out there in TV and radio land don't know. In the studio right now, we're all volunteer.
Right. Right.
With the there is an exception, but we're all volunteer.
Right. Well, and I think that's and to see the product that you guys put out on your show every week, considering that it's all volunteers, I mean, it's great. And now this may be a great stepping stone for some of these kids that do this stuff. It's a chance for them to go out and say, hey, I could put this on my resume, and this will help me get a job.
Absolutely.
Somewhere. And that's what that's what I try to explain to some of these people that come to me with their show ideas. I'm like, look, why don't you do this? How about we put you on my station? And we can advertise when you're going to be on. We pump it up on social media so that you get a following.
Right.
And then eventually you can say, hey, look, I've got 10,000 people that are listening between Sports Country Radio and being on iTunes and people downloading my podcast. I've got a following. So now you've got something legitimate that you can take to a mainstream radio station or television station and say, hey, this is why you should hire me. But now I think kids have forgotten how to do that. It's good to, but places like this are a great lab for people trying to get that next step.
Absolutely.
And that's what I think my station can be for younger people. Like all the people doing podcasts on my show, they're all young. Most of them are all young enough to be my kids. I mean, they're all
me.
Well, except you.
Oh, thanks.
But most of them are young enough to be my kids. But most of them understand that this is how they get their start.
Right. Oh,
yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So, I think, and I'm not trying to sound like some professor here.
No.
Although I do that on my show every day.
I know you do.
I have a history lesson on my show every day. I call myself Professor Gumbs when I'm teaching people. But I'm not trying to preach. I'm just trying to say that I think that shows like yours, shows or stations like mine, it's a great chance, I think, for people to get a start and a chance for people to learn. And they need to be willing to learn. They shouldn't think that they know everything when they come out of college. You may have a degree, but it doesn't mean you know everything.
Well, Professor Gumbs, tell me this.
Yes.
In Middletown, there is the godfather of radio.
Yeah.
What do we know about him?
Well, John. John's an interesting guy, and I don't want to get into a lot of what John is dealing with a lot of health issues now, and he's been a friend of ours for a long time.
He has been. Great guy.
He has some health issues right now, and so I'm actually going out and doing all his football games for him this fall. But John and Judy Clark at WCNX do a great job. But
wonderful people, by the way.
They are great people, but John has really been struggling health-wise. So, and I know a lot of people on your show have watched him through the years. And, but he's doing great.
I know. I talked to him the other day.
His spirits are really good. The doctors are happy with his progress.
Okay.
So we're keeping our fingers crossed that hopefully by the first of the year, John will be back doing his thing with WCNX. I mean, the station's still on the air. The station hasn't gone off the air, but he's kind of he's kind of
sabbatical.
Yeah, he's taking a sabbatical. So all the heavy lifting is really I'm doing it for him. Taking time out from my station to do it for him, and his wife Judy's doing a lot of this stuff too. But he's doing good. He's doing good.
He called me last week for something. I'm like, my phone rings and I see it pop up. I'm like, oh, this should be good.
Yeah.
So I called him. I'm like, what can I do for you? He's like, I could use a good laugh, so I figured I'd call Mezzetti. I'm like,
well,
all right.
And sometimes that's sometimes he does the same thing with me.
We were on the phone for 45 minutes.
Yeah, there's just days where when you're going through health issues, there's sometimes you just need a laugh.
Oh yeah, we were on the phone for 45 minutes with each other the other day.
And all I have to do,
pretty funny.
I don't have to talk to him. I just show up at his house and look at him, and he laughs.
Yeah.
So so that works too. So.
But hopefully he's doing well.
Yeah, he is doing well. And it's with cancer, you never know.
No, right.
So so we'll see. But the doctors are hopeful, and he's very optimistic.
Oh yeah, totally.
And I think when you're going through cancer, and we've all had family members that have gone through that kind of thing. So I think a positive attitude is the most important thing, and he's been pretty good. He's been pretty good.
And you don't know this, but I've gone through it myself.
No, I did not know that.
Yeah.
Have you? Yeah.
16 years testicular cancer.
Okay.
So.
Well, you're still here.
I'm still, yes.
And that's great. I mean, I've lost family members. I lost my father from cancer, and it's tough to watch somebody. It's tough to watch somebody go through that. And and when John first got diagnosed, he was scared.
Oh yeah.
But he has picked himself up, and he's doing well. So I'm really encouraged, and I'm happy he's doing well.
Yeah, me too. Before we got a little bit more time left, so let's talk about the station. What people can expect on the wake-up call, when, where, what time?
Well, it's every morning from 8 to 10 a.m., every weekday morning from 8 to 10 a.m. If you want to know what's going to be on, I'm actually on Twitter. It's at Sports Country IR.
Okay.
And every morning I do a little tease. I'll tell you what's coming up that morning. So
I think the other morning Pete Mezzetti was on your
Yeah, he was.
on your feed.
And I let people know if I've got guests coming on. I give them an idea of what the topics are going to be, who's coming on. So it's 8 to 10, and then we're going to be doing some high school basketball, by the way, this winter.
Oh, excellent.
We're going to broadcast some high school basketball, probably early in the season, because I don't want to step on John and Judy's toes on WCNX. So they don't usually start till January. So the early high school games in November and December, I'm going to do. We did American Legion baseball this past summer.
Yes, you did. Yeah.
We did, and I did Xavier High School baseball.
You did
this past spring. So I'm getting into doing a little bit more play-by-play. So we're diversifying.
Okay.
You know, kind of like you diversify, and so we're trying to do the same thing.
Website for Sports Country Radio is?
It's at sportscountry.net.
And what can people find on the site?
It's got a schedule for the shows every day, and it's got a little bit about the Pete Mezzetti Show, a little bit about Grind Time. And some of the other things that we have going on, the travel show, and there's links to all our social media pages on there. There's a link to email me. So there's all kinds of information there.
And if people want to email you, you'll get back to them?
I will. It's Gene@sportscountry.net. I will get back to you. Well, not immediately, but pretty close.
Pretty close.
Pretty close.
All right.
All right.
Well, we got a little bit more time left. So before we say goodnight, I want to thank you for coming down.
Pete, it's my pleasure. You know, I always hesitate doing these things because sitting in front of cameras makes me nervous. Well, that's why radio is the perfect thing for me. I got a face and a body made for radio.
Yes.
So it's a perfect thing. I shut myself in my studio. Nobody can see me, and I sound like a genius when I'm doing the radio. And now when I come on TV, people can say he really doesn't look that smart. But
Professor.
all right, buddy.
Good night.
See you.
See you soon. On behalf of Gene Gumbs, I'm Pete Mezzetti. Thanks. Good night. We'll see you next time.